morning, buenos dias. My name is Lizzie Newsom, and I am the proud principal of LJ Christian Middle School. It is with great pride that I welcome you to our campus, where we provide a quality education to every student, every day, in every classroom. I offer you our greetings on behalf of Christian's 1,250 students and 160 faculty members. This morning, we are here to dedicate this library in honor of our beloved educator, Ms. Graciela C. Ramirez. Ms. Ramirez began her career in education here at Christian Middle School. She spent close to 4 decades with LISD and became the district's first woman superintendent. Many of us in this library had the good fortune to work with Ms. Ramirez, and we are delighted that this facility will now bear her name. At this time, I'm going to pass the microphone to LISD's Executive Director for Communications, Mrs. Veronica Castellon, who will continue our ceremony.
Thank you, Ms. Newsom, and welcome everyone to this very, very special occasion. Mrs. Ramirez was not only a superintendent, but also an educator. I looked up to her so much when I first started working at LISD in the mid-1990s. And I'll always love her, she knows that. At this time, I ask that you please rise for the invocation to be given by the Most Reverend James Tamayo, Bishop of the Diocese of Laredo.
Rabbi, teacher, master teacher, you gathered disciples, students, and through your words, you taught them lessons for life. And they in turn recorded those words, and they are gathered in a great book that today millions of students, disciples, read, follow, build their life upon. Societies are formed through those values. Today we honor one whose words transformed a community. Students, educators, school district, a city. We ask your blessing upon Graciela C. Ramirez. Thank you for helping her be that master teacher that gave an example and a leadership of service to our community. This library, which will bear her name, contains many, many books. Books that also teach the values she lived by. Books that also remind us of our heritage and our history. May you, Rabbi, teacher, help us to learn those lessons and help us to find the lessons in each person's life and respect and honor them as we do our honoree, Graciela Ramirez. We ask this and all in your most holy name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. Please remain standing for the presentation of colors by the Raymond and Tirsa Martin High School Junior ROTC under the direction of Major Jose Orozco. The national anthem will be performed by the LJ Christian Middle School Band under the direction of Ms. Rosario de Leon. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Ryan Ramirez, who is a grandson of Mr. and Mrs. Rafael Ramirez, along with Mayrin Ramos, who is Christian Student Council President, and Gael de la O, who is Kristen's 8th grader of the year.
Right. Hey. Forward. Right.
We are honored to have so many special guests attending our ceremony, and it's my pleasure to introduce them to you, beginning with the Vice President of the LISD Board of Trustees, the Honorable Hector Noyola. Our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. A. Marcus Nelson. Also joining us, the Honorable Dr. Jacinto Juarez, former City Councilman. The Honorable Judith Gutierrez, former Webb County Commissioner. We also have two former presidents of LISD's Board of Trustees. Please help me welcome the Honorable Amber Yeary. And the Honorable Dr. Dennis D. Cantu. So pleased to have one of our former superintendents, Dr. Veronica Guerra. We'd also like to welcome the Executive Director of the Laredo Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Miguel Conchas. Ms. Newsom, would you come back to the podium so you can help me introduce your school's administrators?
Thank you. We have our assistant principal back there, Mr. Guadalupe Cortinas. And Lidia Gonzalez, assistant principal, right next to him. I don't see Mr. Christopher Lozano in here, but he's our other assistant principal. And Ms. Veronica Noyola, our instructional facilitator. I know she's somewhere here. Thank you to the administrative team for all of your support and for helping put this together. I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
I think I also see Ms. Gloria Saldivar. She's the librarian here at Christian Middle School. And I did see our Executive Director of Student Services, Ms. Maggie Martinez. LISD's Head Librarian, Ms. Meli Pais. Our Director of Elementary Education, Ms. Migdala Ramirez. Our Dyslexia Coordinator, Ms. Patsy Sneros. And Dr. Nelson's right hand, his administrative assistant, Ms. Josie Rodriguez. I would also like to recognize any of Mrs. Ramirez's former colleagues. If you would please rise and be recognized, former colleagues of hers. Thank you so much. How about any former students of Mrs. Ramirez? Please rise and take a bow. Former students. All right. Thank you. Thanks to everybody for joining us this morning. Before we continue our ceremony, oh, Mrs. Bruni, Sylvia Bruni, where is she? Sylvia Bruni, our former superintendent. There you are. Good morning, and thank you for being here. Thank you. I do wish to thank several people who helped us plan this event today. From the LISD Division of Operations, I would like to thank Angel Velasquez. I also want to thank again Ms. Meli Pais for all her help yesterday, her and Blanca Moreno. The Office of Communications, especially Claudia Rodriguez. ITV, our printing department, Josie Rodriguez. Chief Robert Villarreal, who helped us with police and security outside. Ms. Newsom, Ms. Sulema Kurth, Ms. Diaz, and our librarian. Thank you all for helping us put this beautiful event together. Kristen Middle School was named for Louis J. Christian, who was a city councilman and superintendent of LISD in the early 1920s. Back then, his salary as superintendent was $2,000 a year. Can you imagine? The school was built here on the grounds that used to be a city park. That's why the street in front of the library is called Park Street. The original Christian Junior High School was built in 1930 and reconstructed in 1996 when Graciela Ramirez was superintendent. In fact, I remember when you clipped the ribbon to open this new school. One of the teachers back then was a dynamic young man who was passionate about kids. He would become a respected leader in our community, and now he's vice president of the board. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Noyola.
Thank you, Ms. Castellon, and good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be addressing this full house, as I knew it would be for our former superintendent, Mrs. Graciela Chavez Ramirez. I was a young teacher at Laredo Elementary and Christian Middle School when Mrs. Ramirez was an administrator. Everyone knew back then that she expected excellence from the students, the staff, and especially herself. I always admired her energy and how well prepared she was for the important job of educating Laredo's youth. She received her bachelor's degree in elementary education and master's from Texas A&I University in Kingsville, Texas. She earned her supervisor's mid-management and superintendent certificates too. Mrs. Ramirez began her career at Kristen as a classroom teacher. She served as a broad education curriculum coordinator, evaluator of Title I federal projects, assistant director of federal projects, and director of federal projects before she was named superintendent in 1995. Once she became superintendent, she labored to improve the quality of education and maximize the resources and taxpayers' dollars. The budget was focused on the children of Laredo Independent School District. Very quickly, we had 5 schools rated exemplary by the state of Texas. 7 were recognized, and the rest of them were acceptable. There are many new initiatives that she started, including the school within a school concept that resulted in the creation of the Dr. Dennis C. Cantu Health Science Magnet School at Martin High School. For this and numerous other reasons, the Laredo Independent School Board of Trustees named this library at LJ Christian Middle School in honor of our beloved Graciela Chavez Ramirez. Thank you, Mrs. Ramirez, for your many years of dedication and hard work. You are an example to others. In a few weeks, we'll be losing our great superintendent, Dr. Nelson. Mrs. Ramirez, we'll be expecting your application. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Noyola, and thank you for everything you do for our school district. And now it is an honor for me to introduce the instructional leader of our district and 24,000 students. He is in his 8th and final year as our superintendent, and he's preparing for a new chapter in Waco ISD. We hate to see him go, we really do. Please put your hands together for Dr. Marcus Nelson.
Good morning. So very excited to be here at LJ Christian Middle School. As I end my time in our beloved city, I get this rush of emotions, and I start thinking about all the time and effort that goes into being an educator in Laredo. And people like Mrs. Ramirez, Dr. Guerra, my good friend Romeo, the few of us in this room, Mrs. Bruni, who have had the opportunity, the blessing, thank you. Those of us who have been fortunate enough to serve in the superintendent chair know that it's so much time, so much effort. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why this place is special for me is because of the librarian, Ms. Saldivar. And I don't know Ms. Saldivar as a librarian. I'm sure she's very good. But I know Mrs. Saldivar because of her husband, who's a coach. And one of the things I developed a reputation for is going to like every football game I can find. And so I've sat out when the rain, I mean, it's easy to go to a football game, Mr. Ramirez, you know. It's easy to go when the sun is shining. Oh, when it's nice outside. Oh, the stands are packed. But where you find the dedicated educators is when the rain, when you find the dedicated wives to the coaches, it's when the rain is coming down and you're losing by 30. So everybody knows what I'm talking about. So this brings back just a host of memories. And Mrs. Ramirez is also a very special friend to me, as all of the former superintendents and their families will tell you. I know these people. I know their families. Mrs. Ramirez has been there for me in my office, Josie and I, in some of the most turbulent times in my tenure. And it's usually just a phone call or a note that says, "You hold tough, Nelson. You stick to it." And that encouragement has been something that I've grown to depend on. And I'm so thankful that our Honorable Board of Trustees has selected an educator that is so special to our community. Mrs. Ramirez has put in the time. She has walked the walk. She has walked the talk. And I'm just honored to be here today with your family and your friends to celebrate just a small token of this district's appreciation for your service. You're the reason why, you're one of the reasons that the district is what it is today. And the successes that we share and enjoy for our students really have been built on the backs of people like you. And on behalf of the students and the staff here in Laredo ISD, we want to say thank you and congratulations. Before I go, I would also like to thank Kristen Middle School under the direction of Mrs. Newsom, her outstanding leadership team for putting together such a special event. Always proud of the Department of Communications, one of the best communications departments in the country, under the direction of Mrs. Castillon for paying attention to every detail except for my speech. I get to say what I want, but everybody else is following the script. And I appreciate that type of leadership. So thank you very much for being here today, and thank you so much to the Ramirez family.
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Here to talk about today's honoree is a former classmate of mine from Lamar Junior High School. He was always so intelligent and such a gentleman. A product of LISD schools, a former LISD school principal and superintendent of Zapata ISD, and now he's chancellor of the Diocese of Laredo. Please help me welcome, from the Martin High School class of 1974, Mr. Romeo Rodriguez.
What an introduction. Thank you. Dr. Nelson, I'm glad that you're not the only one being mentored. That's why I'm here. You're wondering, how was I so honored and how was I able to be selected? And the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is because I've constantly needed mentoring. And thank God I fell under the wing of Ms. Graciela Ramirez. I can honestly tell you that it's been 38 years. I wasn't gray then. I wasn't a grandfather then.
I wasn't.
38 years ago, I was in my in-school suspension room, which had no air conditioning, and kids would jump out the windows. And I was praying and hoping that this day no one would jump out the window. And all of a sudden I see someone wearing a suit, and I see this very graceful and stylish person walk in. And it was Ms. Ramirez with Mr. Martinez, Ramiro Martinez. And they said, "Mr. Rodriguez?" "Yes." I thought I was going to get fired because my kids were jumping out windows. But it turns out that that was one of the most significant meetings I ever experienced in my life. I actually was being told that I was going to get funding to continue our in-school suspension program. And I could not believe my eyes. I could not believe my ears. That being said, let me just say something. I'm going to say some words, and I want you to say, okay, who comes to mind when you hear these words? Style, affection, respect, and love, or honoree. These are the words that describe Graciela Ramirez. How many lives has she touched? How many students? How many colleagues? This looks like an LISD reunion because each and every one of us that are here today have been touched by Graciela Ramirez. Family, the Chavez family. How can we not have a great leader without support? And so many times when a person is acknowledged for his accomplishments or her accomplishments, we always forget the family. Why? Because there's a sacrifice that is paid. And for that, I thank you, Mr. Ramirez. I thank you, Cindy. Because I know there are times when a superintendent has to do what he has to do or has to do what she has to do. And many times that involves not being with your family, right, Dr. Nelson? I was gone from my family for 10 years, even though it's only 50 miles away. It's not Austin or Waco, but still, you're not under the same roof. And there were times where meetings overextend. And I do remember you making all the functions. And that sometimes interferes with anniversaries and interferes with birthdays and other family events. So for that, we thank the family. The journey's been incredible. A decision was made many years ago in the Laredo Independent School District that we're about all students. Those invisible, those visible, very visible because of their behavior. And we were committed to teach all kids, even the ones that at times were hard to be with. And I'm very grateful that Carlos Vargas and I managed to nag enough people about starting a Lara Academy. And the FS Lara Academy was inducted into the family of schools in 1997. And I am very proud, Dr. Nelson, that it's continued to survive and it's supported by its administration and its teachers. How many lives has that school touched? And it was touched because Ms. Ramirez listened to us and made it happen. We could not believe, I still remember that day when we cut that ribbon. And I keep on remembering that day. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, Bishop Tamayo gave me a special assignment. We had to find some vehicles, and I went to a dealership, and all of a sudden this guy comes running at me with a cell phone. He says, "Someone wants to talk to you." And I said, "Hello?" And guess who it was? It was a student that had tried to commit suicide in front of me. I still remember it very vividly, like if it's happening in front of me. Pulls out a knife and says, "I'm going to cut my veins in front of you because I don't know what to do." Thank God she put the knife away. But this same person that said that to me was telling me, I am now a grandmother. And I have been happily married for almost 25 years. And it gets kind of crazy when you start hearing that your kids are not grandparents. Because then you know that there's some wear and tear on the tires. And I was so taken aback, and immediately I started thinking of my colleagues, my friends, and most importantly you, ma'am, because you made that happen. You made that dream come true. I mentioned to you that you continue to be a teacher. Right, Mr. Ramirez? You won't disagree with me on that. I don't know how she figured this one out, But my wife, Sylvia, is sitting behind so patiently and saying, I hope he doesn't mess up by what he's going to say. And Bishop, please, I know you're still mentoring me. You see some of those gray hairs? Me. She finds ways to get messages to me now through the birthday club. And it's really amazing how creative you continue to be. It's really amazing that today we celebrate, and I'm not surprised, a facility that will be here for many, many, many years to come. But what will never be erased is the way that you have touched so many of us. So for that, we thank you. And we wish you and the family all the blessings in the world. Thank you very much. And like I said, when I started, I said style, affection, respect, and love. And speaking of that, it is my honor to introduce to you Cindy Ramirez, Executive Director for the Special Ed Department at UISD, who is going to come and tell you about Ms. Graciela C. Ramirez.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. As I look out over this beautiful crowd, I can't help but be just overwhelmed by the memories, the emotion, the wonderful times, the challenging times that every one of us in this room have gone through together at one time or another. And it's just, I can't tell you what it's like to stand here and look over this beautiful, beautiful audience made up of dear colleagues, beloved family, and cherished friends. Some of us go back, how old am I? 56 years? Don't put that on TV. But there is a wealth of memory here and enough to last a lifetime. And I thank all of you for being here today. Before I get started on the words I wanted to say, I'm gonna rattle some things off my brain first, because just entering this building has brought back so many wonderful memories for me. I can still remember in the 60s, I wish I could say it was the late 60s, but I think it was somewhere in the middle. My mother was a teacher here, a very involved teacher here. She was the sponsor of the Student Council, sponsor of many other clubs. She, if I heard correctly, also a participant in Teachers' Follies and fundraisers, all kinds of things like that, together with my Aunt Margie and many others who are here today. I remember her taking me to Kristen football games out on the field when the bleachers were made out of planks of green wood. I remember those days. I remember being in her classroom as she was getting it ready during the summers for her kids. I remember the very respected and beloved and very missed Vidal Trevino walking into her classroom. That time, I, of course, was able to sit in his chair, in his office, while she got things done with my coloring book and a pack of 64 color crayons. Those are wonderful, cherished memories, because there's a side of my mother that perhaps her colleagues may not be aware of. And I just wanted you to see that behind the superintendency, there is a woman of passion and dignity, but most of all of grace. And with that, I will now go back to the script before I get into trouble. First of all, good morning to you all again, and thank you all so much for being here today for this tremendous, tremendous moment. I thank the LISD Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Nelson, and everyone who had a hand in this tremendous and beautiful recognition. I'd like to recognize our family here today, representing both sides of our family. The Ramirez family, represented by my cousin Lisa and her mother, Mrs. Tommy Ramirez. and also the Chavez family. Many here today, but the heads are my Aunt Arabella Hine and my Aunt Noni Chavez, and their families are here as well. I'd like to introduce you to my father. Those of you who may not know him, but I don't think there's anybody in this room for whom that applies, Mr. Rafael Ramirez, Jr. And also Mary Ramirez, Rene Rubio, and my son Ryan Ramirez, who is, I'm sorry, Veronica, I may be coloring on your tablecloth. Sorry. I'm so honored to witness this very deserved recognition and celebration of former LISD Superintendent Graciela Ramirez. It's been 22 years. Can you all believe that? It's been 22 years since that day in May in 1995 when the board named her superintendent. If there are any math teachers in the room, please check my math, but I'm pretty sure 22 years have passed since then. That occurred on May the 5th, 1995. And as Sylvia Bruni said, and it has stayed in my mind since that day, May 5th is very aptly, what is it, Sylvia? The Day of Grace. Okay. The Day of Grace, May 5th, when she was named superintendent. Standing amongst the crowd that day, hearing her name announced in that boardroom, and the feeling and the rush of emotions is a memory that will stay with me forever. Her career and her accomplishments are well chronicled and remain an inspiration. The first woman in LISD history to lead this district as superintendent. She's been recognized as Superintendent of the Year. She's been the recipient of the Paul Harris Award and so many others. Truly, hers is a 39-year career spent in dedication to children, to educators, to her cherished district, for whom she will remain loyal to the last day, and to her community. As her daughter, I can tell you, she has always been what you saw then and what you see today. A woman of passionate purpose, of dignity and character, most of all of grace. Hers is a deep-rooted belief of making a difference and of teaching us all to make a difference and dedicate yourself to a purpose bigger than yourself. That's a lot. So all my life, I have been blessed beyond measure to call her by many titles. My protector, my coach and cheerleader, my mentor, my boss for 3 years, my hero. But the title that carries the most meaning has always been and always will be my mom. I have tried sometimes with success and many times more not with success to live up to her example, to go forward with purpose, with unconditional love, to learn to forgive, to lead, to be loyal, to live with grace. I've seen her achieve her professional dreams through determination and strength, through the glories and the challenges, because there were many, from the inspirational teacher that she still is, to superintendent, all the while never once betraying those beliefs, her moral compass, or her dignity. And that, I believe, is her gift to her family and to me, and ultimately to her grandson, Ryan. These gifts, the passion to achieve dreams despite the obstacles, to reach those heights, to make a difference that makes someone's life better, all the while never giving up her beliefs. Because what do we have if we get to the top of the mountain and we've lost ourselves in the journey? She has shown us, she's shown me, how to live with grace. And for that gift, I'm extremely grateful. Thank you again to the LISD board and Dr. Nelson for recognizing and celebrating the woman who has left a lasting legacy from her cherished days here at Kristen Middle School to the superintendent's office. On behalf of my entire family, we thank you so much And now I could not have a greater honor than to introduce to you my mother, former superintendent of LISD, Graciela C. Ramirez.
Thank you all. Thank you. Good morning to everyone. I think I've just about said a personal good morning to each and every one of you, except maybe for a few. But I'm just overwhelmed by the number of people that are here. I may sound a little redundant from what has already been said, but I need to start out by giving certain people certain thank yous. And I want to thank the Most Reverend James Tamayo for being with us this morning. And that was a beautiful invocation of the bishop. And I know that your schedule must be super busy, so I know that Romeo dragged you in here. No, he's a personal friend of mine, and I really thank him for taking the time to be here. I appreciate that. I want to thank my friend and my colleague, because that's what he is, my friend and my colleague, Romeo Rodriguez, for the beautiful words this morning, spoken from the heart. But then he and I both have heart. And so I think that that was one of the things that we shared with one another, the passion and the gleeful way that we went about our work. And I thank you for all that you did then. I thank you for all that you continue to do. And I'm sure that you continue to do great, great things with the bishop. Thank you for being here. To my daughter, what can I say? Spoken from the heart. And I thank her with all my heart. And I'm amazed, I'm impressed with her poise and with the way that she has developed as an administrator herself. And so she is a source of great pride to my husband and to me. Thank you for that, Cindy. And I continue to start with thanks. I want to really sincerely thank Dr. Marcus Nelson for the role that he must have played in bringing this event about. And I thank him for being here and not shipping out before today. He knows I would kill him probably if he had even tried to be away today. So I made sure that his calendar was clear through him and through Josie. And so I really am grateful that he is here. And it gives me a chance really to thank him also on behalf of the district for carrying this district to the level of achievement that it has achieved. And not only local goals, but state goals. And certainly the state recognizes the great gains that Laredo Independent School District has made under his tenure. Thank you for that. And I'm sure that Waco recognizes that too. And that's why you're leaving. But it gives me a chance to say, good job. I want to thank the members of the Board of Trustees for this great honor. The recognition that you have bestowed on me is certainly very humbling. Yet it is a source of great pride for me and for my family. Thank you so very much. I also want to thank Veronica and her whole team. Where's Veronica? Right. Okay. Thank you, Veronica, and your whole team for all that you've done. Look at the pictures. Oh my goodness. These are the ones that overwhelmed me as I walked in. And I wasn't supposed to get sentimental, but the minute I saw the pictures, they brought back beautiful memories. And I remember each and every one of those occasions when I was before a microphone. And that's when I had a lot of experience in speaking to people. I've been retired now 19 years, and I'm a little out of practice. So if this morning I stumble and tumble a little bit, you need to be a little understanding. And so this is a little bit of, a little bit too much for me. But anyway, I want to thank Veronica and very especially Josie Rodriguez, who still to this day continues to offer me her assistance and her loyalty. Like you've already heard, this is where it all began. In 1959, I walked through the portals of L.J. Christian Junior High School, that's what it was called then, as a 20-year-old beginning teacher, because this was my first assignment. In those days, you didn't get the assignment the way teachers get it now. You used to sit, all the teachers would convene in one junior high school auditorium at Lamar. And Miss Tony Valls, who was the registrar for the whole school district, would call out each and every assignment for that school year. And so in September, the day after Labor Day, September of 1959, I heard my assignment as being L.J. Christian Junior High School. And I thought, what? That can't be, because J.W. Nixon, the superintendent, then had promised me a third grade level assignment. And I thought, that means I'm going to be teaching 7th, 8th, and 9th grade language arts students. And I thought, that just cannot be. Me in a middle school? No. And so I walked into Kristen thinking, I'll ask for a transfer after my first year. Well, I stayed 11 and a half years at Kristen, never once giving a second thought to that request for a transfer. And it was really that very first day that I walked into Kristen that was so very special, because the meeting for the teachers that day was in the library. Not here, this one did not even exist. It was on the second floor of the main building, and a small oblong type building, and very rustic looking, but beautifully kept by the then librarian, Miss Felicia Garcia. And so I walked in there, and I must have looked like a lost soul. But like the song says, there was a kind and gentle woman there. And I think she took pity on me, for she stood up right away and came and introduced herself to me and said, would you like to sit with us at our table? And that's when and how I met my good friend, Maggie Rubio. And that friendship has remained steadfast for 58 years. The great partnership that I established with Kristen lasted, like I said, 11 and a half years. Never asked for that transfer that I was so determined to request on that first day. I loved every minute I spent at Kristen. The years I spent here are remembered very fondly. And I still remember our motto, Kristen Junior High School, where everybody is somebody. It's no longer Kristen Junior High School. It's Kristen Middle School, but everybody is still somebody. I became so involved with the faculty and the students and never gave the transfer a second thought. I sponsored the Student Council and the National Honor Society, and of course I became a member, a very active member of the faculty club. I loved everything about Kristen, but little did I know that someday, that room that had been the very first room I had walked into, the library, would someday carry my name. Towards the end of those 11 and a half years, I served as curriculum writer for the very first drug education guide that was developed for school districts across the country. The main objective of this guide was to lessen the temptation of young students to experiment with drugs by informing them about the dangers inherent in the use, misuse, and abuse of drugs and narcotics. This came to the attention of Mr. Porter Garner, who served as the director of federal programs then, and because of the information that was in this guide and all the statistics and all the research that was done for it, he thought I'd make a good evaluator. So he offered me the job of evaluator of federal programs, and that's where my administrative career began. I accepted that position very reluctantly because by then, Kristen had become a wonderful place for me. And then, by then also, I was working on my master's degree, and was working towards acquiring all and whatever certificates I might need as I ascended the ladder of administration. I loved teaching, I really did. And I missed my students and my fellow teachers. But I soon discovered that I loved administration too. It took a couple of years before I secured all the certificates that I might ever need in case opportunities would come up. I believe in being ready. And so I was able to accept the position of Assistant Director of Federal Programs, and then the Director of Federal Programs, and that eventually led me to the superintendency in 1995. And the rest is history. And we did make history by LISD naming under the direction of Dr. Cantu, who was the president of the board at the time, naming me the first woman superintendent for Laredo ISD. And I remember that very day, May 5th, 1995, when Dr. Cantu said, "This is a day for the Chavez family." I'll never forget those words, Dr. Cantu. And so I felt truly, during the years of my superintendency, while I loved everything else I had done up to then, but the years of my superintendency, I felt true professional fulfillment and a sense of immense self-satisfaction. The relationships that I developed with the community, with the board of trustees that I served under, with my professional colleagues, with the 4,000 plus professional and paraprofessional staff members, and with the 28,000 plus students, those were certainly the pinnacle of my career. I remember addressing so many student groups, so many young female students, so many future teacher groups, so many college-level students, and so many high school graduating classes. And I would always emphasize the importance of their setting high goals for themselves, of continually working on their acquiring a sense of self-worth and confidence, on planning ahead to secure all that they would ever need one day when they would have a certain job that they wanted. They kept their eyes on that job. They needed to be ready and be able to accept those opportunities so that when opportunity knocked on their door, they would have all the paper requirements to be able to open that door. For if you are ready and you qualify and you have all the requirements, regardless of gender, race, color, or creed, you can reach for it and you may get it, and hopefully you all will. And hopefully our students will. And so I'm living proof of that. Woman superintendent, who would have thought, in Laredo ISD in 1995, where really in the entire state of Texas, you could count probably in both hands the number of women superintendents that there were. But we did it, and Laredo ISD made history. I was one of very few lady superintendents in Region 1, which is the Region 1 that services us, which is the regional service center that LISD belongs to. Now, even my life after Kristen still continued to surface in my life. Believe it or not, one of my very first official duties as superintendent was to accept the completion of this building that we are in this morning. I remember walking with then Director of Operations, Conrado Cruz, with the contractor, with the architect, and with the administration of this campus on that day. And it was that day that they found out that there was a little bit of a difference in now having a woman superintendent. Because don't we have the wonderful reputation of looking at every tiny detail? So I noticed detached baseboards. I noticed crooked light switches. I noticed that all the doorknobs weren't all matching. You know, those are little things, but that's what makes everything perfect, right? And so we women strive for perfection. And so I accepted this building on the condition that every single one of those little things would be corrected. And so like I've told you, this is where it all began at Kristen. So isn't it very fitting that the career end here today with this very special occasion? I think it's just a God-sent gift to me and to my family. I did retire in 1988, and I well remember writing scores of thank you notes to the people who had been so courteous to me, and to people who expressed their good wishes for my future. And on the inside of that note, on the very top of the card, I penned a quote from one of my very special readings, and it stated, "The best is yet to come, the last for which the first was made. That's what I wrote in my handwriting. And then, of course, I wrote the little note underneath, personal note. And yes, indeed, today is part of that best that has come, and also a part of the last for which everything else has happened. There are so many people to thank for that. And I know I started with a lot of thank yous, but I'd like to add some. I want to thank my husband, Rafael, for always being there for me. I don't think he ever missed a single board meeting. Do you remember him, Dr. Cantu, sitting there at 1 o'clock in the morning? Or past 12 midnight? That happened very often. We had long meetings. We had lots of things to do. And so his support and loyalty carried me through all those years. So thank you, Checho. And I want to thank my daughters, Cindy and Mary, for always being there for me now. I need help with everything, and so they're always there. My sister, Arabella Hine, and my sister-in-law, Noni, my other sister-in-law, Marianela, both sides of the family have always been so very, very supportive. I have nieces and nephews here today, and they have always extended their support and their love for me, regardless of what the tempo was like. But overall, the community was wonderful to me. So this gives me a chance to also say thank you, Laredo. One of my favorite authors, Khalil Gibran, has a famous line in one of his writings, which I adopted as part of my personal philosophy. It reads, "I am a part of all whom I have met. I have taken a little piece of each of you who have come into my life. I have made each of you a part of me. And so I thank you for helping make me the person I am today." Thank you for that. Thank you for being here and for sharing this very special day for me. This is the last, but what a beautiful and meaningful ending. May God bless us all.
That was beautiful, Mrs. Ramirez. You brought so many memories to me. One memory I can't forget. May the 6th, the morning after she was named superintendent, I had never seen so many flower delivery trucks pull up to the front of 1602 Houston Street. Carmines, got flowers. All of them, they kept coming and coming. It was like a procession, remember? And then the day she moved into the superintendent's office, all the flowers came with her. It was beautiful. But I've always said, her name is perfect for her, Grace. She is favored by God, and that's what favor means. So it's very appropriate. Mrs. Ramirez, naming this library in your honor is just a small token of appreciation for all the years you dedicated to LISD and for your dynamic leadership, which most certainly impacted the youth of Laredo. Now I ask that you please help us unveil the portrait that will grace this library for perpetuity.